All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show, brought to you by Rock On Podcast Network, which is also the home of Rock On Detroit Lions podcast, your ultimate Detroit Lions fan channel destination. Good morning, everybody. And of course, look, I can't do this. We can't do this without you. You know that. That is why you guys are the best sponsors, supporters, and subscribers in the absolute world to this channel. And I appreciate and thank you guys every single day for joining us. Another important piece of this broadcast, though, is our sponsors, sportspider.com. Please, after the show, check out sportspider.com. That's sport, SPYDER.com. Get all of your sports in one place. If you guys want to get all of your videos, your content that you want to read and consume all day long, it's right there. Every sport, tailor it the way that you want it. Get it in your inbox every day. All right, so we're back, or at least I'm back from Florida, and Eric Rintamaki is back from a rock show in Kalamazoo. So I want to bring Eric in and get him rolling this morning. Good morning. There he is. Good morning, Eric. How are you today?
Fantastic. How are you, Will?
I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling great. Had a short stay, but got to see the kids play some baseball in Florida and win the district championship. And now I'm back. I go back in a couple weeks, but they got last game, I think, tonight or tomorrow. What is today? Today's Tuesday. So, yeah, they play tonight. Excited for them, man. Naples is doing well down there. It's a beautiful little visit, but hopefully many, many more here in the future. So what's up with your rock show this week? Why don't you tell everybody what you're doing this last week and how it went?
Yeah, I did the Kalamazoo Rock, Gem, and Mineral show for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saw thousands and thousands of people, gave a couple of talks each day, and taught people how to hunt for Uper lights, what Uper lights were, how I discovered them, what lights to use. It was a blast. Got to meet all sorts of super awesome people. Mike P, if you're out there, got to meet Mike P once again and talk to him for a little bit. So that was pretty cool, getting to visit with one of our listeners. So it was a very awesome weekend. Saw lots of people, and it was packed, jam-packed.
So Mike P's in this morning. That's awesome. You got a chance to see Mike P again. So we were talking about something a couple weeks ago that potentially you might want to do some sort of a Lions Uper light hunt, just Lions fans.
Yeah. I actually, at the Ford Field watch party that I went with you, I talked with some of the people from the Detroit Lions, and one of the things I want to do is I want to set up a kids foundation, because I love doing stuff with kids and getting kids into earth sciences and geology. And one of the things I've always thought would be really, really cool to do is take a child and their parents from the inner city, whether it be Detroit or Chicago or wherever, that could never, ever come up to Lake Superior, could never afford it, right? And has never seen the Great Lakes, has never been anywhere other than the city, and someone that financially just could never do it. All right. Take them, their parents, and a Detroit Lions player and myself, and take them out Uper light hunting for a night and have a whole free trip for them and their parents to come up and go Uper light hunting with me and a Detroit Lions player. I think that would be a super cool thing. And then eventually I want to get it to where I have like a scholarship for that child, that way when they graduate college or graduate high school, they have at least a partial scholarship sitting there waiting for them if they want to go into geology or earth sciences or become a DNR officer or something in that vein.
Sure. That sounds awesome, man. I love it. Absolutely love it. And I can't wait to get up there to go hunt some Uper lights. As you know, I'm terrible at even finding Petoskey rocks, which don't require a light. It's a funny story, but I'm not going to get into the one today. Actually, I should. So Megan and I, when we went Petoskey hunting a couple years ago, we were at this roadway, and long stairs going down to the beach. And so we're trying to go to the places less traveled. And sure enough, we found a couple little ones, and I took a picture of Megan. And she's like, hunting for rocks, right? She's looking for rocks, Petoskey rocks. And we get back and we start looking at the pictures. And I look at the picture and then I zoom in. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. There was one that was like this big right in front of her that we never saw. So I just found it hilarious that they're right in front of you and you don't even know it. But anyway, let's get into some Lions this morning. Let's welcome in our chat today. We have John Desage in the house. Tracy, my heart is with you this morning. Tracy lost her grandmother over the weekend. I don't know the exact dates, but Tracy, my heart's with you and your family. I hope everything is going well for you guys. And of course, we got Eric in the house, Mike P, Bruce MacArthur, Tyrone Weedleaf, Zachary Cleary, Bruce Morton. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning. And so topic of the day has been Hendon Hooker over the last many months now, right? But topic of today is Hendon Hooker. And I want to deep dive into some of this stuff. You've had two sides of the fence, right? Jared Goff, we can't pay Jared Goff because it's too expensive. It's going to inhibit the growth of the team. And we've got other guys that we have to, to spend big money on. We, meaning the Lions, which they just did. They just made Amon-Ra, one of the most expensive wide receivers in the league. They just made Penei Sewell the highest paid offensive tackle in the league, right or left. So the Lions are spending money. And it's been on the table now for a while that they're going to extend Jared Goff, that it would happen sometime after training or after the draft, before training camp. I'm expecting that to happen sometime at the end of May. So to somebody's question in here, when are they going to re-sign Goff? From what I understand, it's supposed to happen sometime end of May, potentially early June. But they want to get it done. They want to get it done before training camp because, as you know, when those things loom, right, it can weigh on the psyche of a player. And you definitely don't want to start a season with contract negotiations still underway, right? Still talking about it, because what's been the Lions' mantra for a long time now, even before Brad Holmes, is they do not do contracts during the season. They just don't. If at all costs they can avoid it, they will. And I think that that's a great place to live in, because you mess with a quarterback's head throughout the season, you're going to have a bad season. And I know it sounds like it shouldn't, that the agent should be the one handling everything, but it's still on the back of their mind. They still have to wake up every day. Is the deal getting done? Am I signing something today? Am I getting that $50 million signing bonus check? Not that Jared Goff probably needs the money, but it's something that heavily affects all players, is their contract. I mean, that's what they do for a living. They want to make their money. So question number one is this: will Hendon Hooker's time in Virginia Tech or Tennessee kind of help Hendon Hooker adjust to the NFL? Eric, I'm going to let you go first, if you want. Otherwise, I'll roll with what I have prepared. But do you think, and this could be a short answer, long answer, whatever, do you think that his time at Virginia or Tennessee is going to help him in any way be successful in the NFL? I don't know if you know much about Tennessee's offense and kind of what he went through, but what?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, wasn't he in a totally non-pro offense in Tennessee?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's kind of a wild card whether he's going to be any good in the NFL or not. I keep hearing all these reports from, practice and stuff, that he's got this great arm and that he's very mobile and he can move real well. But is what he did in college going to transfer to the NFL? You've seen a lot of quarterbacks, like, who was it? Was it Trubisky that was at North Carolina, and they thought he was going to come to the NFL and it was all going to work out so great, and it didn't.
It's funny you mentioned Trubisky, because he's actually on my list this morning, in part of another conversation. So part of what I'm going to get into this morning, this is a long topic. This is a topic that I want to kind of cover all areas here. And I'm not saying that my perspective is the only perspective, but it's going to come from a place of analytics and research. And let me just start with, were you finished on your, or do you want to keep going?
Well, there's only one thing I want to say. Okay.
Sure.
So I am a fan. I am not a super analytical guy. So I want everybody to know that because I'm joining on this podcast, I'm learning and becoming a better fan because of Will and because of Coach and because of other people that are teaching me what exactly I'm watching. Okay. So I'm learning, and you guys at home can learn too. And I'm telling you, this will make you a better fan. I'm already becoming a better fan since February, since I met Will in person, and I've come a long ways. And listen, I played football in high school, and listening to the way people talk for each hobby or each interest they have is like learning a brand new language. So football has its own language, and I know just enough. It's kind of like watching a television show in Spanish. I can kind of watch it and understand what's going on, but you asked me to speak Spanish, I could never do it in a million years. So that's kind of what it is with this whole football thing. You know,
that would be like asking me to tell you how Uprolites were formed. I'd have no idea.
Yep, exactly. So you got to learn the language.
And to your point, I mean, I'm still learning things every day too, and that's why I read so much and invest my time into trying to stay current with things, because there's a lot to learn every day. You know, I've always had this little mantra myself that if I'm not learning, I'm not earning. You know, because you always want to stay learning to be able to increase your ability to earn in life. So look, let's talk about Hendon Hooker here. He started his college career at Virginia Tech, and then he transferred to Tennessee, where he had a vast improvement in his performance at Tennessee. In his final season, Hooker was absolutely exceptional. He led the Volunteers to a very significant season, one of which they beat Alabama, which they've never done. I think, what was it? Peyton Manning, that played for Tennessee, never beat Alabama. So Hendon Hooker was able to beat Alabama in his final season. So he led the Volunteers to an amazing final year. He finished as the SEC Offensive Player of the Year in 2022. Remember, 2022. We're already in 2024. He boasted pretty impressive stats, including a leading pass completion percentage in the SEC, which is not easy to do, and a top position in the NCAA passing efficiency rating, which again is not easy to do at any level. His college career ended abruptly due to an ACL injury when he was expected to be the front runner that year for the Heisman. He was drafted by the Detroit Lions in the third round of 2023. And I want to make sure that everyone's very clear on something here. When I did my research last year on the Lions, I selected Hendon Hooker to the Lions in the third round. It is written in stone on my website. It's all over the video. So I'm not a fan of Hendon Hooker. I wanted Hendon Hooker on the Detroit Lions team. I felt that he was going to be the best available quarterback after round one only because of his injury. But I felt if he wasn't injured, he would have been a top 5 selection last year. Without a doubt, I will go to the grave believing that, just because of this kid's ability and what he was able to showcase. But there's still issues there. Just because you're a top 5 or a top 10 or even a first rounder, it doesn't mean that everything adds up to the NFL, right? You still may need time. Case in point, J.J. McCarthy, Michael Penix, guys that were taken in the first round this year that have amazing ability, but still might need some time to really develop. It may take them a full season, could take them 3 seasons, but they're not going to hit the ground running. And we'll see that this year, just how well they develop, this summer. But they shouldn't really hit the ground running and come out the box firing on all cylinders. I expected the same thing for Hendon Hooker. I expected him for him to enter the NFL in a role behind Jared Goff as learning. Even if he was fully healthy, whatever team he landed on, I expected him to be a backup until he could be, the number 1 guy at some point, if he could get there. So anyway, he's drafted by the Lions third round last year, where he was kept on the NFI list until roughly week 12 of the regular season. So he, wasn't allowed to practice, right? He wasn't allowed to suit up. Even if he was healthy, he could not go on the practice field and go run around and do things. He could throw on the sideline with the guys. He could go to meetings. He could do all of the planning and prep for games. He could do everything but practice, pretty much. He could do training. He could get medical attention. He could do all that stuff, just couldn't practice. So week 12 was the first week, or marking the first time, really, he had even put on shoulder pads for the first time in a practice in over a year. This is important, in my opinion, for everyone to understand, because he has not played a snap or been behind a center since November of 2022. He is 18 months removed from playing football. He has to really earn his stripes and regain the confidence when grown men are bearing down on this guy. You take a snap from Ragnow or whomever this preseason, and you got big, grown, angry men coming at you. He's got to relearn and adjust to that speed, which is way faster in the NFL, right? Guys are bigger. Guys are smarter. He has to readjust to all of that. He has to learn how to get the ball out, get rid of it, or get out of the way and make a play. This is crucial. This is a crucial time for Hooker's development, in my opinion, this year with the Detroit Lions. Despite the setbacks from his injury, his focus has been solid on gaining strength and preparing intensely for this season, for what will be his first season, being able to take part in all of the team activities. And I believe that he's got great determination. I mean, you listen to the guy, you read about the guy, everything about him exudes that, he's ready. He wants to contribute. He wants to be a significant part of this team. And now he's finally cleared for more intensive action. So this year will be his real first year, being able to give it a go. With all of that said, Eric, I'll kick it over to you before question 2. With all of that said, how does that make you feel that this guy hasn't taken a snap behind center, really? I mean, he did maybe the last 6 weeks of the season last year in some practices, but those are glorified walkthroughs before a game. This will be his real first training camp. So now what do you think about his ability and kind of where he is as a player?
Yeah, so I was kind of a Hooker fan before the draft he was drafted in. And so
didn't you say you were going to Vegas here in a couple of weeks?
I am. I even have a Hooker jersey too. I was going to wear it today. I forgot about it. So anyway, I was screaming at the TV during the draft. This is before I knew Will anything. And I was screaming at the TV in the 3rd round, take Hooker, take Hooker, take Hooker. Because I knew we had never had a quality backup quarterback. And this was our one opportunity to have someone that isn't a Nate Sudfeld, isn't what's his name? Tim
Blau.
Yeah,
David Blau. Yep.
David Blau, and then the other one that we got,
Tim Boyle.
Tim Boyle. We needed somebody competent, and for once we had a chance to get a top 10 quarterback because he was injured. And I was screaming at the TV, take Hooker, take Hooker, take Hooker, and my buddies that I watched the games with, Rafe and Bob, they're screaming at me, no, we don't want him. We don't need another injured player, blah, blah, blah. And I equate him a lot to the same as Jameson Williams. I think Jameson Williams is going to have an absolute breakout year this year. I think he's going to be a Pro Bowler this year. You watch. That's your
hot take for Tuesday, huh?
Yeah, that's my hot take for sure. Is that JMO is going to break out this year.
You think that Hendon Hooker is going to be part of that? Where were you going with that part of it?
No, I just think that Hendon Hooker, just like JMO, is going to need two seasons to get his feet under him, because last year he couldn't do anything because the ACL. Right. He got it so late in the process, and the Lions didn't activate him until week 12. He couldn't do anything other than throw a football around. So when's the last time you had somebody hit him? Because I don't think they could even hit him in practice,
Right. No, he couldn't. Yeah, you're not taking hits as a quarterback in the NFL, especially. Hey, real quick, your camera's kind of moving off screen. Yeah.
Darn it.
So question 2 was, do I believe that Hendon Hooker is the answer at backup quarterback? And the follow-up to that, or part of that, was, does he deserve a chance to start in the NFL? And I feel like those are 2 very different questions that I'm going to try to answer, I guess, in one, and then I'll kick it back over to you and see what you think. So first, I want to say this to a couple of the guys in the chat. Good morning, Big Walt, Ryan Van Valkenburg, Roberto. Welcome in this morning. And to your points, like Mike P says, his mechanics are good to great, but much like any player out of college, until he sees pro game schemes and speed, it will be a trial period. I agree with that. Roberto says Hooker will get back into the groove before the season start. It's like riding a bike for professional football players. They have been playing the game for so long. Then Casey just joined in, said maybe Hooker can get a few Wildcat plays this season. I love the ideas there. So here's what I'm going to say about Hooker. One, there is no denying that Hendon has a very strong arm, very highly accurate in his last season of college. But this is the NFL that he has not played in yet, right? Things are different. It's much faster. It's more difficult to just kind of click on day one. This takes time. It's a process. Like, Eric alluded to a minute ago, he had the ACL injury kind of late in the process. Hendon's still going through a process. We have seen many quarterbacks come into this league and never make it. And a lot of them first rounders. And I've got a whole list this morning that we'll go through. A lot of even first rounders that have come into this league with, crazy expectations that have done nothing, that have amounted to nothing. Johnny Manziel being one of them. I don't even have him on my list this morning. And I'm not comparing him to Johnny Manziel. There was obviously other reasons, for some of his issues. And where that's why I'm going to compare him to some other quarterbacks this morning. But there's no rhyme or reason why, certain NFL quarterbacks succeed in the NFL. I mean, I think that you have to have the talent, you've got to have the speed, you've got to have the intelligence, the football IQ, the awareness, especially. You have to have the will to do it. You have to have the drive to do it. I mean, you've got to be cut from the same cloth as Amon Ra, as you do Calvin Johnson, as you do a Matthew Stafford, a Jared Goff. I mean, you've got to blend all of these different, attitudes and ways of doing things to be great in the NFL. You really have to have a slice and a piece of the best to do it, to be able to succeed. And you have to be able to do what others don't want to do. And here's where I'm gonna start kind of heading down the track of why it may not work right away and why it may take a little bit more time. So scouts thought that the Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes played a little too loose, right? Didn't have the mechanics to become a starter. Well, he's won how many Super Bowls now? Super Bowl MVP, 2 regular season MVPs in his first 5 seasons as a starter. So going down the path of what a scout sees and what a scout thinks is going to happen, clearly wrong on Patrick Mahomes, right? And that's why I'm hoping that maybe some of these scouts and some of the other people like myself that have watched Hendon could be right or could be wrong for different reasons. But each season, it feels like we have that unexpected starter that makes some noise. And that was San Francisco 49ers rookie Brock Purdy. Started the NFC Championship game after several injuries to their quarterback room, kind of thrust him into the limelight, if you will, of having to play. He was Mr. Irrelevant in the draft, pick number 262. No one imagined he would reach the sport's apex in his first season, let alone coming back and trying to reaccomplish that same feat the next couple of seasons, right? Yet there he was, and there he is, and he did it. All that to say that evaluators are searching for ways to identify top quarterback talent and identify them correctly. I would say that not one scout is above another. I mean, guys are wrong all the time, or ladies, whoever's doing the scouting workup, they're wrong all the time, and they're right, some of the time. Just look at the mock drafts. Everyone's mock drafts were exploded this year by pick number 3. One of the key talking points is whether their college was pro style. That is where I'm going with this, which entails full field reads, leading a huddle, controlling the play pre-snap, what you're doing post-snap. And Tennessee runs what's called a pace and space offense that emphasizes getting the ball to playmakers in the open field. Now, that's a big word to remember. Open field. Not under pressure, right? Not guys, draped by cornerbacks or safeties. Open field. Some critique the scheme, and they say it isn't really preparing quarterbacks for the professional level. And their criticism really fell on the quarterbacks, like Hendon Hooker, that are in these type of schemes and leading to the NFL, and how that type of scheme is not making them ready, or it's not readying them for the NFL, because they're playing in a scheme that largely used in high school. This is not a professional scheme. So you have to enter the league and start anew, start fresh, learn everything all over again. Whereas if you come from Alabama, where Saban ran a pro style of offense and defense, you are heads and shoulders above the rest. Ohio State, Michigan, these teams that are running pro styles are getting their quarterbacks and the rest of their players ready a lot quicker. It doesn't mean that you do everything pro style, but the large majority of it is. Hooker took the podium, though, at the NFL Combine to address the media. He spoke out about the perceived offensive limitations. He shrugged the question off and kind of retorted by saying this: "It's not my fault nobody could cover my receivers." Hooker talked about his style, explaining, "These are all grown man throws. I'm not throwing any 5-yard outs. I'm throwing big boy balls." I thought that this was a phenomenal quote, like, to hear this from Hendon Hooker. But then I thought about it. I'm like, wait a second here. These are not 5-yard outs. These are big boy throws. These are big boy balls, whatever he wants to call it. Well, that's kind of where this offense is it not, Eric? Where's our offense thrive right now?
Yeah.
5-yard ins, 5-yard outs, everything over the middle, quick hitch, quick throws. It's exactly what I'm talking about, right? The throws that Hendon's going to need to make are not wide open streaks, right? And that's what they largely did at Tennessee. Pace and space. You got guys all the way out to the boundary on both sides of him, and he's just chucking the ball to wide open receivers streaking down the field. He wasn't utilizing a whole lot of, I don't know if I want to say it that way. He wasn't using a whole lot of, I guess poise could be the right word, but he wasn't doing a lot of timing routes. And I think that's what's going to bend Hendon Hooker's trajectory into the NFL the wrong way for him right now, as I think he's just going to have too much to learn and not enough time to learn it to really push Jared Goff in any certain direction. But before I get into the rest, after saying all of that, Eric, what do you think?
Well, I don't think that Hendon needs to push Goff to be the starter. We need a quality backup, and that is what he was brought here to be. So if something happens to Goff this season, let's say sprains an ankle and is out for 4 games, we need someone quality to come in and win 3 of those 4 games. That's what we need Hendon Hooker to be. And, if somehow the match gets lit and he just catches fire and is amazing, well, then we'll deal with that when we get to that. But for now, we need him to be a quality starting backup.
And I think that's exactly what he is. And so before I get too far into left field or, going off in the wrong direction, I do want people to understand one important thing here. Hendon Hooker is going to be the absolute best quarterback as a backup that the Detroit Lions have seen in more than a decade. And it could be ever. I'm just not going to put that on him until I actually see him play, right? Yeah. Hendon Hooker is going to be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. I just don't know how long it's going to take him. I think that's the question, right? That's the question we're trying to answer. How long is it going to take him to get pro ready, to be able to, God forbid, Goff goes down and we need Hooker to come in and win a game. Does he have the arm talent? Absolutely. Has everything that, the quarterback coach, Mark Brunell, said about Hendon's intelligence, that he picks things up, he can question them, he knows the answers. I've read that and heard that throughout Hendon's, even history in college, that he picks things up quick enough, even though he failed the testing that they did. It's almost like a Wonderlic test, but not. He failed it. And that was another big knock is, well, how can you have a quarterback coming into the league that is, supposed to be good, but you're failing all of these little tests? Sometimes those tests are meaningless. And that's what I said about Hendon Hooker is, if the guy can come in and ball and just play football, I could care less about your test. The only test that matters to me is the athleticism. Like, does he have the athleticism to go with the arm and enough athleticism, to get him out of bad situations, which I believe he does. I really do. But here's a couple of quotes by Pro Football Focus and analyst Sam Monson, kind of on this same subject here. Here's what he had to say about Tennessee's offense. He said, "I hate that offense so much. It's not applicable to the NFL. So when we're projecting all of the guys out of that offense to the NFL, it's abstract. The wide receivers are having to answer like, I can run routes. I know how to do it. But like, you ran 3 routes in college. And so that's one of my biggest knocks on Hendon's timeline is he's only throwing a few routes. There's more than a dozen routes in the NFL. And if he's only been throwing a few routes, does he have the arm talent? Yes. Strong arm? Yes. Big arm? Yes. Can he throw deep? Absolutely. But that's not the NFL today. The NFL today, if you look around, is not. Go ahead, Eric.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
So the wide receivers that played for Hendon Hooker at Tennessee, some of them had to have been drafted by now. Have any of them went on to be amazing receivers in the NFL? I haven't heard anything.
So Jalen Hyatt came out last year. Your camera's still moving. I don't know if you can get it centered.
Yeah.
Stop. So Jalen Hyatt came out last year, and I haven't prepared anything on him, but let me just pull up his stats real quick. Last season, he played in 17 games. He had 23 receptions, 373 yards, no TDs.
Yeah, so still adjusting to the NFL game.
Absolutely. And it's going to take him some time. So, I mean, he ran 3 big time routes, and a lot of them speed routes, outside routes, right? Getting deep in a hurry. So Mr. Sam Monson goes on to say this. He says, Hendon Hooker is operating this theoretical offense where you are only ever reading half the field. And it's not even a full half field read where you're working through a progression. It's just an either or concept. Chocolate, vanilla. That's either or, right? Right, left. Like you have a crossing pattern of some description, a route concept that goes against the defense. And all you have to do is decide, do I hit the left guy or the right guy? It's not playing quarterback. It's doing something entirely different. So when you're looking at Hooker and saying he can be quarterback 5 in the 2023 NFL draft, which a lot of people are, it's because he's got a prototypical size, more or less, because he's got speed, because he's got all the tools. But projecting what he's doing in college from an offensive point of view to what he's going to have to do in the NFL is barely even worth attempting because the offense is that absurd. So if you're using like touchdown to interception ratio, you're just wasting everybody's time because that's irrelevant. That's the big point that I've been trying to kind of explain to people is, yes, amazing stats as last year at Tennessee. But when you're throwing 3 routes and it's chocolate or vanilla, it's 2 concepts, right? It's 2 decisions. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and then option on every route, right? Something for the defense. You're talking 7, 8 different scenarios in one play in 2.7 seconds. 2.7 seconds. He only had to do 3 options before, maybe 2. Now you've got to come in and do 7 or 8 different scenarios in 2.7 seconds. Big difference. So I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm just saying he hasn't done it yet. So his big time stats, his big time completion rates, his touchdown to interception ratios, none of it matters until he's able to show that he can do that in the NFL. So does that mean that in year 1, even if he's having a great training camp, comes in and wins every preseason game by a large margin, does that mean he's ready? No, it doesn't. And it won't. He needs time. He needs to be able to go in and do it over and over and over and over again. But this is where you have this type of a quote, though. Like you have that quote by Mr. Monson, right? But then you have this quote about Hendon that makes me believe this guy can be a very good quality backup for sure. If he gets a shot someday, he may do well. But the issue right now is nobody knows until he takes the field, right? We don't know what we don't know. What does Brad Holmes always say? When he talks about the players that he likes, for our team. What is the one thing in free agency that, if you can remember, what he kept saying? Why he didn't take the big names and the big money contracts, the Daniil Hunters, and you remember
for his culture.
That, but also I know these guys, or we don't know these guys, right? Yeah. So we only know what we don't know, or we only know what we know. So right now, Brad Holmes knows Hendon Hooker, the person, knows what he did in college. But what we don't know is what is he able to do in the NFL. So here's another quote, and this is where Bruce Feldman kind of ties things in a little bit for us. He says, Hendon was great. And this was an anonymous quarterback coach. I apologize to Bruce Feldman. He said, Hendon was great. He is trending to overtake Will Levis on my rankings. Will is more talented as far as arm strength and size, but I think Hendon might run faster. He's more nimble, and he has more throws in his arm. He was just so mature. He remembered both offenses from Tennessee and Virginia Tech in such detail. He talked about the route depths and the reasonings behind certain things. He was very even keel. I would be shocked if he doesn't make it in some capacity. So what he was kind of saying here is this was obviously draft time, right? They're talking about Hendon Hooker's projection to the NFL, where he's going to land on the board, where he's going to get selected. And this quarterback coach felt that Hendon should have been a top 5 quarterback, should have been taken before Will Levis. I would tend to agree with that, other than the fact that even Will Levis, he came from North Carolina, right? I believe he came from North Carolina or Kentucky, one of the two, but more of a pro style of offense, more of an offense that leads to the NFL in a manner that's not so hard of a jump, not so big of a jump where you're coming from a 3-route concept to the NFL, which is, crazy. So where we got more questions here, but where I'm going to kind of end with this is going to end up being this long diatribe about quarterbacks taken in the first round. What have they done for me lately, right? What have they done with their NFL careers so far? And why it doesn't really matter if you take, the best guy in the draft, they may not work out. It happens time and time and time and time again, every single year. And to multiple quarterbacks, they do not succeed. You mentioned Mitch Trubisky earlier, and I promise you we will get to his stats and what he's done. He might actually have been one of the better first-round quarterbacks taken over the last 10, 12 years, to be honest with you. That is no longer a starter, right? He might have been one of the better. I want to say he started 50 out of 51 games before he lost his starting job. So that speaks some volume, right, for what he was able to at least bring to the NFL. So anyway, question number 3. Anything you want to add to Hendon Hooker here? And here's where I'm going to end, and then we'll kind of pick this up a little bit as we go this morning. But here's where I'm going to end with Hendon Hooker. I believe he has the physical tools. I don't think that there's any doubting that he has the physical tools. I believe that he has the mental capacity to learn the scheme. I believe that sitting behind Jared Goff is going to be the best thing for him, whether that is 2 seasons, last year and this year, and then he gets a chance next year, or it's 3, 4, 5 seasons and he becomes a career backup. Is that what Hendon wants for his career? Probably not. Right? I don't think that anybody that, plays at this level wants to be a backup. But I do believe there is a place for every great player in the NFL. Hendon could be the best quarterback backup in the NFL today. We just don't know. So do I believe that he's ready to take the field this year as a starter? Absolutely not. Does he deserve a shot in the NFL? I would say after 2024, he deserves a harder look to see if there's something there. And Brad Holmes is going to do that, right? Dan Campbell's going to do that. They're going to evaluate. But I think that we're going to have Jared Goff re-signed to an extension well before we ever know if Hendon Hooker is going to work out or not. I think it was a blessing enough for Hendon Hooker to even be drafted with the ACL issue where he was and land on a team that actually has a pretty good opportunity for him, right? You had a quarterback that was on an expiring contract in Jared Goff, and you actually have an opportunity to win a spot here. So should something happen to Jared Goff, I mean, you're the next best thing that we got. So I think it's a good situation for him. I think it's a great situation for him to learn behind Jared Goff and Ben Johnson. I think he's in a phenomenal position. I just don't think that he's ready as much as some people would like to believe. And I think that everything that I just shared this morning should show you or tell you at least that he's not. And we just don't know until we know. And we'll find out this summer. All right, what do you got to say on Hendon here?
Well, I believe that the Lions really do want him to be a very high quality backup quarterback. And I think they are going to change his game, just like they've had to change JMO's game, because JMO came from a pro offense in Alabama, correct?
Yes,
So
sir.
you would think that he would have a full entire route tree coming from Alabama, but he didn't. He
Nope.
did go routes and end arounds, and now they're putting him in slants and comeback routes. Like the comeback route that he did against San Francisco was one of the nastiest comeback routes you've ever seen. And now that he's adding that stuff to his game and gaining the trust from Goff, oh my God, going to be awesome. So just imagine that with Hendon Hooker going from absolute zero to earning the trust of the staff to be able to run all these different plays that he's never ran before. And I think they're going to start him off slowly. I don't think you're going to see him running around, being the next Patrick Mahomes like he was early on, running all over the place, or like a Lamar Jackson. I don't think they want him to use his legs unless he absolutely has to. We want a pocket quarterback that, if pressured and absolutely nothing is open, then you have to use your feet, then use your feet. I don't think they're going to let him just go out and run around all during the preseason. And, I really think they're going to coach him not to run around, to maybe take the sack instead of running around. They want pocket passers. I don't think we want a super, super duper mobile quarterback running all over the place.
I would agree with that. And I want to point out a couple of comments here in the chat this morning. Appreciate you guys being patient with me. I've been away from this for more than a week. I'm glad to be back in the saddle. I'm going to try to bring everything with me to Florida on the next trip so that we can maintain at least a couple of live streams while we're there. Just couldn't really find a good place down there to do it. I did bring stuff with me, but it was so damn hot too. My goodness, 90 degrees down there. It felt great. So, couple of things here. You just mentioned JMO, and I think that that's a great comparison to a guy that was on a limited route tree, right? Did not earn the respect, and I mean that in a favorable way, of Goff, right? He didn't earn the respect that he could do the work his first season. Limited time in training camp, right? He missed an entire training camp, comparable to Hooker. Hooker missed his first training camp due to injury. So did Jameson. So that already sets the quarterback and the wide receiver back a season, because in order to play in this offense and play on this team, you have to earn the respect and the rights through Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. That's number one. And Jameson didn't earn that. Hendon Hooker's not going to earn that. His second season this year, Jameson's third season this year, but Jameson's second season, again, he missed 6 or 4 weeks, really. I think it was a little bit longer than that because of the injury to his hamstring. I think it was 6 weeks, but 4 games. And Jameson still didn't earn the respect that, was needed to, for Goff to have confidence in him. Now his third season, this is like the no excuses for Jameson Williams, where he was selected. So he's got to have a good season. He has to have a good season this year. And good, I mean like 700 yards, 50 balls or more kind of good season. I think he should be somewhere in that range. For Hendon Hooker, I think that, this is the year of growth. I think that this is the year of learning for him at a different pace. I think that they're going to amplify what they're going to feed him. I think they're going to shove a lot of stuff down his throat, see if he's really been paying attention the last 18 months, while he's had a clipboard in his hands mostly, and see where he's at mentally. Physically, he's clear to go. Like he's fully healthy. He's good to go. So there's no pressure there to say, yeah, we need to limit him a little bit. I mean, they might minor amount of limitation, but I doubt a whole lot. I think that they're going to let the guy go. And by go, I mean, let him go full out, do what he needs to do, scramble, run. But you're right. They do want a pocket quarterback. I mean, that's where the NFL is kind of heading back to. So it was pocket passer the entire NFL, since day one up until maybe 20 years ago. or whenever Michael Vick came in. I can't remember what year he came into the league, but he was like the first dual threat that kind of changed everything, right? I mean, Randall Cunningham, sure, he was a dual threat, but Michael Vick was the guy. Like, he was the real dual threat guy that kind of changed the game, where, young players started to look up to him like, I want to be like that guy. Hendon Hooker, in my opinion, is not a dual threat. I think he's a highly mobile quarterback that is a pocket passer at his best, right? I think that's what he's trending to be. And I think that's what the Lions want. They don't want their guys running around getting hit. They want to know that they can move if they need to move. But Goff does plenty fine. I call him, the giraffe, because when he runs around, he's just so clunky. But, tall, lanky guys are kind of clunky at times. And Tom Brady was the same way. I think at the end of the day, Hooker's got a big growth season in front of him. I think that by next year, I think we will know everything that we need to know about Hendon Hooker. So in the chat here, it says, Zachary Clary says, normally it takes time for quarterbacks to develop and learn the pro style offense in the NFL. Agree. Tracy says preseason is where we will see what he can do and if he can adjust to the speed of the game. I agree with that. Someone had also mentioned that we needed Will to report back to us during training camp. I promise you I will. And I plan on bringing some people to training camp with me again this year. We should have plenty of tickets to go around again. We'll be giving them away, but you guys got to jump right on it. They're not going to last. Last year it was hard to give them away. I don't expect that to be a problem this year. What else did we have in here? Let's see.
So here's a thought for you and everybody, Will.
Sure.
Who has been our number one nemesis for forever, for my whole lifetime? The Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
What have they done successfully with their last three quarterbacks?
Well, they sat them, of course.
For the last 30 years, they've had three quarterbacks. So the last two times they've drafted a first round quarterback at the end of the first round, and they stash him for 3 or 4 seasons.
Yeah. So they sat
never done.
No, they never have. And I don't think that that's what they're planning on doing with Hooker, meaning, he's the replacement of Goff. He could be. Mm-hmm. And by the way, as far as ads, this channel will have ads. What we're going to do is this. I'm going to stream this to both channels, and I did get it set up last night. So the other channel, the Rise and Grind Morning Show dedicated channel, that one is going to be open to subscribers only, not members, subscribers. So if you subscribe to that channel, it'll be ad free. This channel will run ads for, the podcast and things of that nature, the videos, just because we have to do one or the other. For a while there, we were going ad free. And then when we do memberships, obviously memberships will be ad free, of course. So that'll be one of the perks. It's ad free. We do more ad free content here than anybody else does. And we want to continue that method. But I think there's a fair trade that if I say, hey, go to the other channel, subscribe to it, you get it ad free. I think that's a great trade-off. That'll help build the other channel so we can do some other unique things. I'm trying to grow that channel so we can bring in more people to be part of Rock Down Podcast Network and branch off into different segments. And by the way, we should be having a couple of special guests this week. I'll get back to my emails and that. There is consolation prizes that still need to go out. Necklaces, I'm waiting on some product. Should be here tomorrow, I hope. But once the product comes in, we're going to make the necklaces for the people that want them. Fanatics and NFL Shop has been nothing but a nightmare. Everybody's gift cards went out except for one. And I just had to claw that back through Fanatics. I started, obviously, with all my layover time in Charlotte, calling them to make sure that I could get that gift card back. So if you're waiting on a gift card, I'm waiting on an answer, which should be today, of did they get my account fixed or not? I never have gone through something like this where I just wanted to buy a product. That's it. I just wanted to buy a product, and it's turned into a whole nightmare. So hopefully we get those things fixed today. That's the plan. So this brings us to another question here. If Goff, and it's more of when Goff is signed to a multi-year extension, Hooker could potentially be 30 years old at the end of his current contract. Is Hendon Hooker's age a factor? And I'm going to kick that one to you, Eric, and then I'll tell you kind of how I feel. What do you think?
It could be. It reminds me of that quarterback from, I think it was Florida State, that he was 27 or 28 when he finally got drafted, and then he just flamed out in the NFL, never did anything. I can't remember his name. But yeah, this is a young man's game, but quarterbacks are lasting well into their 30s, and he's only a year different from Goff, but Goff has like 8 or 9 years experience in the NFL now. Goff's been to a Super Bowl. Goff knows the system. So Hendon has a lot of ground to cover super, super fast. And maybe we'll be like the Kansas City Chiefs when they had Patrick Mahomes come in and they drafted him, and the plan was to stash him and let him sit for a long time. But injuries happen, and they were forced to play him, and they saw just how good the kid was. So you never know. Maybe something like that happens. Maybe it doesn't. In my heart of hearts, I just hope he's a very good, serviceable backup. So if something, heaven forbid, happens to Goff and he has to miss 1, 2, 3 games, that he can come in and win that 1, 2, 3 games for us.
Yeah, I mean, the goal has got to be, keeping the needle, pressed down, the gas pressed down. And you have to have a good quality backup. You would hope that would win at least 50% of the games that they're presented with in an emergent situation. But to answer the age factor here, so Jared Goff is 29. Hendon Hooker is 26. And Jared Goff will be 30 before Hendon Hooker is 27. So they are like 3 years and 4 months apart.
Okay.
So Hendon Hooker being 30 at the end of his contract, right? So yeah, 4-year contract. So he'll be 29, I think, at the end of his rookie deal. And Jared Goff should be 33, right? Here's what I will say about age in the NFL. It's changed, especially for quarterbacks, that are not getting hit, and quarterbacks that are not getting PT, playing time. I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue as maybe what some people would think. Tom Brady, who, by the way, just got roasted, completely roasted.
Did you watch that
on Sunday night? I watched some of it. I couldn't sleep, so I was up till 2:30 this morning watching.
20 minutes in, and I had to shut it off.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad, and a lot of the sexual innuendos and all the. Yeah, it was bad. Talking about his wife and all. Yeah, there was some bad stuff in there, but there was some good stuff too. I just
couldn't handle it.
Poor taste. I think it's poor taste, but you know what? That's what the roast is all about. Why they got to go that direction, I don't know. But where I was going with that is Tom Brady played till he was 42?
I thought he went till 45.
44? Something crazy, right?
Yeah.
And there's even talks of him coming back this year and playing for the Raiders or somebody, right? So I don't think that age is as much of a factor anymore with the way that medicine is today, sports medicine. And, obviously with the food options, some of these players highly invest in themselves, from food to exercise to, trainers, you name it, to keep their body right, to keep their mind sharp. And I think that's added an additional 5 years to some players' careers, where if they have the ability to still play, if they're still wanted by a team, that they can still play. So Hendon coming in and really being a backup, let's say he stays a backup until he's 30, and then he moves on to a different team. Let's say Brad Holmes pulls, the wool back off our eyes and shows us what his whole plan was to develop this guy and then turn around and trade him for some draft capital, maybe next year or the year after, which is a potential. I think that he'll be just fine. I don't think that age is really a factor here because he's not getting banged up. He'll be practicing, but not getting banged up. They're not allowed to hit the quarterbacks in practice. He'll play in a few preseason games. So his body will be well rested. I don't think it'll be an issue for him at all. Jordan Love sat for a few years. I know he's a lot younger, but you haven't seen any drop off, in what he was able to do this last year. He started off slow, but man, he really picked it up in the end. So the answer is no. I don't think that the age of Hendon Hooker is going to be a factor. If anything, he's an older, wiser quarterback coming into the league. I feel like that'll help him to, with his maturity, to develop a better chemistry with the players around him. I do believe that Hendon Hooker, from everything that I've read and listened to, very well respected by the guys in this team. He's someone that's earned respect already from his teammates, which I think is imperative to his growth. And I don't think the age is really going to be a factor here. So question four, and if you guys have any questions too in the chat, feel free to shoot them out. I'll start paying attention to the chat. So question four, Lions invited a record-setting quarterback to rookie minicamp. The question is why, but you know what I forgot to do this morning? Forgot to do the transition. So let me transition and then we'll come back. 30 seconds or 5 seconds. So question four, the Lions invited record-setting quarterback to rookie minicamp. Why? Why is the question? Do you want to start with this one or do you want me to roll into it, Eric?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I feel like I would like to start with this one with what I know. And that is, what is up with Nate Sudfeld? And then I guess I will get into the whole Kade situation after that and what I feel is the real answer here. So to answer the question about Kade, we got to start with Nate. Nate suffered a torn ACL in his left knee during the preseason game against Carolina Panthers on August 25th, 2023, during what was his only series in that game. Obviously lost for the season. The Lions brought back David Blau and turned to Teddy B as their primary backup for 2023. Sudfeld has never started in an NFL game, but has been a quality backup and third string option at multiple stops between Philadelphia and Detroit. He's played in only 6 regular season games. He's thrown for 188 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception in 37 career pass attempts. So what do I know? I know that Nate Sudfeld has been a quality backup, but I wouldn't say quality on the field. His play on the field has been atrocious, in my opinion. And when you watch Nate Sudfeld and then you think about Hendon Hooker and the situation that he's in, there's no way that, in my opinion, Hendon Hooker can't beat out Nate Sudfeld. And if we are even talking about there being a competition between these two guys, Hendon Hooker will never be the answer. If Nate Sudfeld can even lean on Hendon Hooker in any way, shape, or form, we've got a problem with Hendon Hooker. So that'll be an interesting topic during summer in training camp. But for Nate Sudfeld, I think that the issue here is they're bringing in a guy that can come in and play right now. They need arms, right? They need arms in camp. You can't put all this pressure on Jared Goff. You can't put all the pressure on Hendon Hooker. You need 3 or 4 good quality arms in camp to get you through camp. So I think part of the reason why Kade Peterson was brought in, number one, the Lions needed another arm. Number two, probably not real confident on Nate Sudfeld, even though he's been viewed as a quality backup. And I feel like a lot of that comes from the mental side of the game. He's been very good with Jared Goff on the mental side, the preparation, giving him different looks and things, throughout the game and throughout the week, helping him prepare. That side is solid. The on-field stuff, completely trash, in my opinion. Sorry, Nate. That's just how I feel from what I've seen. The thing about Kade Peterson, though, is he's someone that can play right now. Whereas Nate Sudfeld, he may not be ready until week 1. If he has any setback at all, he may not even be able to practice during training camp right now. There has not been a whole lot of reports out on Nate Sudfeld. He pretty much stayed in Oregon throughout the entire process of this ACL rehab. He's been, involved with the Lions training facility a few times in the last year, but not a whole lot. So I think the biggest question that's looming right now is Nate Sudfeld going to be ready for camp? So I think that's why Kade Peterson, Kade Peterson comes in this year to compete for that third quarterback position with Nate Sudfeld. What do you think about that situation? And then I've got some information here on Kade Peterson we can share.
Yeah, I think that is exactly it. He is an insurance policy, and we always bring in some undrafted free agent quarterbacks pretty much every year. Just take a look at them, have somebody to throw the ball around in camp, because when you have 90 guys in camp for the OTAs and mini camps, you need some people throwing the ball, and it can't just be the two main people. You need 3, 4 other guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if they had 2 or 3 undrafted quarterbacks at minicamp.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see if they bring anybody else in, but I think you're spot on here too. Is they have to have multiple arms. You don't want to burn out. I mean, it's almost like a pitcher, right? You're on a pitch count. Same thing with quarterbacks. They're on a pitch count. They don't want to see these guys overextending in training camp, burning out their arm, developing tendonitis, or anything like that, in the elbow, shoulder issues. I mean, look, it's not if, but when they're going to start developing some arthritic conditions in the elbow, the hands, the wrist, the shoulder. It's going to happen. So they're trying to limit the wear and tear on these guys. You bring guys in like Kade Peterson, which, by the way, pretty damn good quarterback. I get it, D2 school, GLIAC, but we've seen this happen before. Kade Peterson, Grand Valley State University phenom, in my opinion, currently drawing attention from the Detroit Lions, brought in and invited to rookie minicamp to compete. 6'4", 222 pounds, ran a 40 in 4.86 seconds. So decent speed, nothing blazing, but he's been a standout performer at the D2 level. His impressive skills include a strong arm. I believe he has good mobility. He demonstrated all of this by his performance in the Great Lakes Intercollegiate Athletic Conference, better known as the GLIAC. He was named the GLIAC Offensive Player of the Week this last season and led his team to an undefeated season in conference play. Over his college career, Kade Peterson has accumulated over 8,500 yards and 85 touchdowns. He's definitely showcased his dual threat ability and capability by also gaining significant rushing yards and TDs on the ground. In 2023 alone, Kade Peterson had a pretty impressive performance, completed 210 out of 317 passes for a total of 2,639 yards, 26 passing TDs. And on the ground, he rushed for another 664 yards and scored 9 TDs. So again, it's twofold for me. One, this kid definitely has prototypical size, good speed, known as a dual threat. I again view him as highly mobile, especially making a transition from a D2 GLIAC to the NFL. Big difference here. So I think he's someone that can come in and chuck the rock around, has a good arm, incredible, from my opinion, incredible at throwing players open. I watched some of his tape this last weekend. Obviously had a lot of time in the airport, so I watched a little bit of what he could do. He likes to throw his players open, which I appreciate. That takes a high level mentality to know where your players are going to be on time, get them open on time. But throwing players open is an art in and of itself. And I believe that Kade is one of the better ones, from the D2 at least, to be able to showcase that. So I'm interested to see what he does moving forward. But I don't think that this is a move where we potentially have our third quarterback. I'm not saying that he can't do it. He could. I think a lot of players can beat out Nate Sudfeld. I don't know if the Lions are actually going to keep 3 this year. I would doubt it, but he could definitely land on the practice squad. But he's got an arm. He's got the talent. He's definitely shown it. He's shown the ability to be able to do it. My question is, can he catch the ball? Because you know what I see out of Kade? With his speed, his size, his ability, he could be another tight end. He could be another conversion, at the next level. could be a quarterback turned tight end, in my opinion. I liked his ability running. When I watched some of his tape, I thought that he was smooth, man. He was a smooth mover. So what do you think about Kade? Were you able to watch anything on him?
No, not watch anything on him, but my thing is this: what if we could use him as a third emergency quarterback, since the Lions got um, the league to change the rule for an emergency quarterback, and you can carry that third guy and not count against the roster, and we could use him, even if we did use him as a tight end, on helping us with our defense. Because what was our defense's one of our biggest Achilles heels last year? It was going against mobile quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields, and these guys just running all over us. So if we have a guy that can emulate that in practice, even if he's not our quarterback, say he's our tight end, but we use him as a faux quarterback in practice to practice against guys that can run all over us and get out of the pocket and escape and, make it last 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds like a Patrick Mahomes. So you need somebody that can emulate that in practice for our defense. So maybe it's somebody that can even help our defense out.
Yeah, I think those are all great, valid points. Obviously, we have Hendon Hooker that can do that as well. I think that was probably one of the biggest moving points, in my opinion. I don't know this for a fact, but I think that when Brad Holmes looked at Hendon Hooker, he probably saw the ability there that, look, this guy can give us great looks, on the look team when we're going up against certain quarterbacks. Now Jordan Love, but then it was Justin Fields. That, Hendon can move. Obviously, he can move. Kade Peterson can move. So he'll be able to give us even more looks. So I think spot on with that, Eric. But you brought up the emergency third quarterback. And so I'm going to pivot this morning. This has been a topic of conversation that nobody understands, because I think a lot of us got it wrong when it first came out. So indulge me for a minute, people. Let's review this rule. I want to make sure that I understand it before this season gets rolling. So in May of 2023, NFL clubs approved a bylaw, Proposal 1A, that permits each team to dress a 49th player as its emergency third quarterback. The following procedures are in place for use of an emergency third quarterback in regular or postseason games. The way I understood this last year, and what I think a lot of us got wrong, is that we could have, that 54th player that didn't count and on the roster, right? It's actually game day. It's game day dressing, from what I understand, or what I thought last year.
Okay.
So we can't carry a third quarterback and have him not count towards the top 53. We can stash him on the practice squad and then call him up for games, is what I'm understanding. But let's roll through this. So and I'm not trying to throw you under the bus or anything, Eric. I just want to get this out there so we all understand.
I need to learn it too.
So what is an emergency third quarterback? A club may designate a bona fide quarterback as an inactive emergency third quarterback for a regular season or postseason game. The player must be listed on the game day administration report that is submitted prior to or at the 90-minute meeting, subject to the following. The emergency third quarterback must be on the club's 53-player roster. The player cannot be an elevated practice squad player. That's interesting. Cannot be an elevated practice squad player. So that means you cannot elevate a quarterback that week. He has to be on the roster going into the game. So you add him to the roster, that means you can elevate anybody else. It would have to be elevation of a cornerback, a defensive tackle, a tight end, anybody but a quarterback you can elevate. But you can't elevate a quarterback and have him be that third emergency backup. So it's kind of a pointless rule, in my opinion, but whatever. So he can't be elevated.
For the last 6-8 games, we had Teddy as our backup, and then our emergency was Hooker.
Well, Hooker had to be on the roster.
Yeah, he wasn't he, from week 12 on?
But I don't think we ever dressed him for a game. You know what I mean? He wasn't really playing last year. Hooker was on the roster, so they didn't toll his contract.
Okay.
And by tolling the contract, meaning he wouldn't have earned his first year of NFL experience. So it ties into all these things of NFL player benefits and wages and time in the league that you have to earn those additional benefits. It's kind of like working for your employer. You get 1 week's vacation after, let's say, 30 days, and then 2 weeks after a year, but you get 4 weeks after 4 years. It's kind of the same thing, right? You earn additional benefits the longer you're with the company. Same thing applies to an NFL quarterback's or any player's contract. So if he would have redshirted basically his first year, he would have never earned a year of eligibility in the NFL. So that's why the Lions did what they did. They promised Hendon that they were going to bring him up, and they did. So they stood by. But to continue on with this, the emergency third quarterback, like I said, it must be on the club's 53-player roster prior to the game. Cannot be elevated practice squad player. The club's starting quarterback, QB1, and its backup quarterback, QB2, must also be on the club's 53-player roster. A club must have 2 bona fide quarterbacks on its 47-48 player game day active list to designate an emergency third quarterback. A club cannot designate an emergency third quarterback if it has 3 or more bona fide quarterbacks on its 47-48 player game day active list. So there's a bunch more rules that goes along with this, but I guess the quick and dirty is emergency third quarterback. All quarterbacks are going to count against the 53-man roster if you have them elevated or not. They have to be part of the 53-man roster. Then they have to be part of the game day roster. And then you can elevate them, just not from the practice squad. They already have to be there. So interesting information there. I'm glad you brought that up because that was something that I needed to understand before we get deep into this season.
Learn something new today.
As I promised, I put together some information. And this goes back to Hendon Hooker and why people need to understand something about the NFL and quarterbacks, which I think a lot of people already do understand that there's a very thin line between the best quarterbacks to play at the college level being successful at the next level is a very thin line. Very slim amount of players actually succeed. So what I will start with is this, a summary of quarterbacks drafted in the first round from 2015 to 2022. Noting those that have had starting careers lasting longer than 3 seasons. 2015, Jameson Winston. Started initially, but faced performance and injury challenges. He was a career backup. He might have started again after Tampa, but primarily been a backup his entire career. 2016, Jared Goff. Maintained a starting role, including a Super Bowl appearance. Now, obviously, with the Detroit Lions, has led his team to the NFC Championship in season number 3, multiple playoff wins. Look, he's one of the most successful quarterbacks drafted since 2015 in the NFL. He is top 3 in playoff wins and appearances since 2015, which is incredible. Drafted players since 2015, not players in the league, because you still had Tom Brady in the league and other players in the league during that time. 2016, you also had Carson Wentz, Philadelphia Eagles, started for several seasons. He also faced injuries. Now with the Commanders as a backup. 2017, remember Mitchell Trubisky, who you mentioned earlier, Chicago Bears, started 50 of 51 games initially, but did not maintain the starting role after that. Has been a career backup player since, and I think he's now with the Bills, if memory serves me right. 2017, you have Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City Chiefs, has been a starter since his second year. Very highly successful, the most successful quarterback drafted in the first round since 2015. Also in 2017, you had Deshaun Watson. We all know the story there. Started off great, ended with a massage, and now he's a Brown. In 2018, Baker Mayfield, Cleveland Browns, initially as a starter. Now he's with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he's had a resurgence of his career since last year. Sam Darnold, 2018, New York Jets, started, but he struggled. Now he's with the San Francisco 49ers as a backup. And then he was traded, or he was with the 49ers as a backup, then traded to the Vikings. Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills, continues to be a successful starter. He's been a starter ever since he came in the league in 2018, and he still is today. Lamar Jackson, Baltimore Ravens, MVP, I believe his rookie season. He went to the playoffs his rookie season, but he hasn't done much in the postseason. He hasn't won much in the postseason, but he's been a consistent starter and pretty successful in the league. 2019, Kyler Murray, Arizona Cardinals, continues to be a starter despite his injury issues. Daniel Jones, New York Giants, has been a starter since day one, facing performance and injury issues. Just re-signed an extension last year, I believe, and his time is pretty much done in New York. I believe that this will be the year that Daniel Jones is probably faded out. 2020, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals, successful starter, led the team to a Super Bowl. Tua Tagovailoa, Miami Dolphins, regular starter, faced injuries, still playing today as a starter. Justin Herbert, 2020, impressive starter, has several records already as a Charger. 2021, Trevor Lawrence, Jacksonville Jaguars, started since rookie season, still starting today. This is where things start to go bad. In 2021, every first-round quarterback, except for Trevor Lawrence, is no longer a starter in this league. Zach Wilson, traded to the Broncos, started with the Jets. Trey Lance, drafted by the 49ers, now a Cowboy. Justin Fields, drafted by the Bears, now a Steeler. Mac Jones, drafted by the Patriots, now a Jaguar. 2022, the trend continued. Just 2 seasons ago, Kenny Pickett, drafted by the Steelers, the only first-round quarterback drafted in 2022, is now an Eagle after 2 short seasons as a Steeler. So why am I bringing all this up? This is just an overview. It shows the varied success and longevity of first-round quarterbacks with several still maintaining starting roles beyond 3 seasons. Now, it's a little early with 2022's Kenny Pickett, but he's pretty much done. 2021, this is the year that you're going to evaluate Trevor Lawrence. This will be his 4th season as a Jaguar. And this is really where, it's kind of the put up or shut up season for him. But like I said, 4 out of the 5 drafted in 2021 have not succeeded. 3 drafted in the first round of 2020, Joe Burrow, Tua, and Justin Herbert, haven't won a Super Bowl yet. Right? Joe Burrow didn't win a Super Bowl with the Bengals, did he? They lost, right?
Yep, they made it.
Yeah,
but they lost.
Yeah, they lost. 2019, you only had 2 first rounders, Murray and Jones. Murray and Jones. They haven't amounted to anything. 2018, Baker, Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. They haven't won a Super Bowl yet. 2017, Trubisky, Mahomes, and Watson. Only Mahomes has been the most successful quarterback drafted since 2015. 1 quarterback so far out of all of these that have been drafted since 2015 has won a Super Bowl. Jared Goff came close, but that's it. So 2015 till today. Now, this is not counting 2023's quarterbacks because it's too early. But the point that I'm trying to make here is just because you're drafted in the first round, just because you're drafted, period, into the NFL, does not mean that you're going to be successful. Why is this relevant to Hendon Hooker? Why do you think I'm bringing this up, Eric? Like, why, what am I trying to say here to people? Any idea?
Temper your expectations.
Bingo. There it is. We need to temper our expectations a little bit. I think that we need to let Hendon Hooker develop. We need to let him grow at his own pace, at the Lions' pace. We can't force this kid into the game and expect that he's going to play at a high level. And I think that the proof is there. I mean, I just read the facts to you about the players drafted since 2015 in the first round, not the 3rd round, not the 2nd round, the first round, which are the most talented quarterbacks by far of any. Now, this doesn't take into account Tom Brady 25 years ago. This doesn't take into account Brock Purdy, who I mentioned earlier, Mr. Irrelevant turned relevant. You have those shining moments that happen very rarely. I mean, you're talking 2 in the last 25 years. 2. Tom Brady and Brock Purdy are the shining moments of the NFL since Tom Brady was drafted. When was he drafted again? 90, was it 97?
Oh, long time ago.
Somewhere around there. So I went a little bit further. Playoff wins. List of notable quarterbacks drafted since 2016 and their playoff wins to the present day. Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he's achieved considerable playoff success, including winning multiple Super Bowls. He's the number 1 overall quarterback right now since 2016. Drafted with the most playoff wins, most Super Bowls is Patrick Mahomes. And behind him, there's really only 2 players, Jared Goff, Joe Burrow, well, now Jalen Hurts. Those are really the only few that have gone to a Super Bowl since 2016. All of the other players that have gone to the Super Bowl were in the league before these players were drafted. So what does that tell you? It tells you that out of the last 20 years or so, very few players make it. We know that. I mean, only 2 quarterbacks make it to the Super Bowl every year. Only 8, 12, 14 or so make it to the playoffs every year. I can't even remember right now. My mind's mashed. Wild card. Was it 14 teams total at start or is it 12? I can't remember.
12.
I think the point that I'm trying to make with you guys is Jared Goff is a top quarterback in this league, and he has been since he's been drafted. If he is number 3 on the list or even number 2 on the list compared to Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, as far as playoff wins, appearances, Super Bowl wins or appearances, I think we're pretty good. Like, I'm good paying Jared Goff whatever it requires to keep him a Lion. You're going to have more success with someone that's been there, done it, proven it with 2 teams than a guy that's coming from an offense at Tennessee that is so far off kilter that it's going to take him a little bit longer to get it. Doesn't mean Hooker can't come in and be the 3rd shining moment in the NFL in the last 25 seasons. He absolutely could be. But we don't know what we don't know. And for right now, I'm resting my hat on Jared Goff and his future success with the Detroit Lions, hopefully for the next 4 or 5 seasons. I'd love to see him stick around through, 2029, 2030. And I think that this is the year that we're going to see the Lions make that leap finally. I think that this is the year that we could really potentially hoist a Lombardi. We almost did last year. And you're going to see some of my content this week is going to speak to just how close the Lions really are and how fun this season is potentially going to be. And man, the NFL screwed up. They screwed up by allowing Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes be part of the same team. They screwed up by allowing those guys go to the most hungry city in this country for playoff wins and Super Bowls, Detroit. And they really screwed up by allowing them to have Jared Goff and doing what they just did in the draft the last 4 seasons. This is a fun time. So, Eric, I'm going to kick it over to you for a few moments, man. Anything you want to talk about this morning? Anything that's on your mind?
Sure. So I got one other subject. Somebody was talking about it in the comments. I'll be real quick. Jake Bates went off this weekend. He went 5 for 5, kicking them from 43, 60, 29, 49, and 42 to seal the game winner with 2 seconds left. It was an amazing game. I watched it. And the 42-yarder that won it, he kicked it from 47, but there was a penalty. He missed it because it got partially blocked. There was a penalty because the guy was coming a little bit early on that block, moved it up 5 yards, and he kicked it through. And the internet went crazy with people saying, sign him to the Lions, sign him to the Lions. The Lions cannot talk to him. The Lions cannot sign him until the season is over. And with that kick that won that game, they went to 4-2 and basically sealed a playoff spot for the Michigan Panthers. So their season is going to be extended by at least 1 week. The Stallions are 6-0, and they are guaranteed a playoff spot, but it's pretty much virtual right now because the third place team only has one win, and the fourth place team, the Renegades that they just beat, are 0-6. So they have basically no shot to catch up to the Panthers because the top two teams from each conference make the playoffs. So I'm pretty much 99% sure it's going to be the Michigan Panthers and the Stallions in week 1 of the playoffs. So just so everyone knows, we can't sign Bates until their season is completed. And there's going to be a lot of competition for the kids. So I hope we get in on that competition.
Jake Bates is a story. By the way, your camera keeps dancing.
Man.
He is a story. Like, I'm loving what this kid is doing. I really am. And this morning, Ryan Van Valkenburg, he wants to know, do we think that Brad Holmes will fork over the cash to get Jake Bates and beat out all the other teams? He wasn't willing to pay the last solid kicker we had in Matt Prater. Since then, we've only had trash kickers. You know, I think that's kind of a loaded statement question, kind of all at the same time, Ryan, and I appreciate you sending that in. So I guess to break it down, do I think that he's willing to do it? I do. I think that Brad Holmes is willing to do it. I think that the fact that they jumped on the phone right away to inquire about Jake Bates, and obviously there's a process there. Like Eric just stated, we can't do anything till June or until their season ends, which is sometime in June now. I think that Brad Holmes is going to upgrade this team whenever, wherever he can. I think that he's shown us that that's what he wants to do, and he's willing to do. Do I think it's going to be a ton of money? I don't. I don't think that Bates is going to get, a few million a year. I think that if he gets $1 million to $1.5 million, I think he would be lucky to get that per season. But then again, look, this dude's booting 60-yarders like it's no big deal. Was this his third or fourth this year?
Yeah, that's his third game with one over 60.
So third 60 plus this season alone.
No, it's fourth because his first two were 63 and 64 yarders.
So he's got 4.
A 62 and a 60. So he's got 4 total kicks, so 60 or more yards.
So here's the question. How many NFL kickers today, last season, had 4 60-plus field goals made?
0.
Had 3, had 2. I mean, how many? You know what I mean? And were these all indoor? I can't remember if they're all indoor.
Yeah. He did miss 2 kicks. It was a 58 and I want to say a 63-yarder that he missed outdoors in the wind at Memphis last week.
Do we know what the wind was?
Yeah, it was quite windy.
Pretty bad day.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he gets a pass on that, but the fact that, he's going to get 9 games this year inside, I think is a huge benefit. He should probably nail 99% of those kicks at Ford Field where he's very comfortable. But to continue on with your statement and question here, Ryan, he wasn't willing to pay, Matt Prater. I think that Matt Prater was a solid kicker that was on the wrong side of 30, right? And he might not have been a true fit for Brad Holmes, the Dan Campbell, maybe. That's the only thing I can think of because Prater was as solid as they come. Like we didn't have great expectations of him in the beginning because he missed some kicks right away. If I'm remembering his career correctly, he missed a few kicks right away and everyone was like, oh God, we got Prater and we got problems. And there was a lot of, jokes being flown around about him being sober now, so he couldn't kick. You remember that? Yeah. Remember when people were making those jokes? Like, I mean, I don't think that had anything to do with it. I really don't. And I commend the guy for being sober, but having trash kickers now, I wouldn't necessarily say trash. I just think they're part of our process. Like
they're serviceable.
Dan Campbell is a go for it kind of guy. We know that now. And I think that kickers are kind of like, he doesn't want to win by kicks. Like he wants to win the game. He doesn't want it to be field goal close. But we do need a kicker that can kick to win the game if we absolutely had to. And I do believe if we had a kicker that he could trust in, maybe some of the calls would change. But if I were to put a percentage on the calls that would change, maybe 10%. I don't think Dan Campbell's going to change much of what he does. I think that what they do is their thumbprint, their fingerprints, their identity on this team is they want to win, and they're going to win their way. And if that's going for it on every fourth down that's manageable, he will. Going for it in tight situations, he will. I think that if you had a kicker that could boom 60-yarders, I do believe that changes our conversation at least a little bit. I think there might be one more win last year where we really could have used it, which would have been the NFC title game. I think that one of those kicks would have happened. One of those attempted kicks would have happened, which would have been the second kick in the second half. I think that would have happened.
So not last year, but the year before, I went to the Minnesota Vikings game at the Vikings, and Dan Campbell in the fourth quarter made a mistake. He had Badgley try to kick a 54-yard field goal with not much time left, just under 2 minutes. And he had been going for it all game, and he didn't. He trusted his kicker, and the kicker missed. And he said that he would never do that again. He would trust in his offense and let them go for it. But I think if we would have had a Jake Bates then that could kick that, maybe we win that game.
Yeah, possibly.
So, yeah. And the first year that Brad Holmes came, we were in cap purgatory. Prater was on the wrong side of 30. He was declining. He wasn't as perfect as he was his first couple seasons here because he was here for 6 years. And we needed as much money as we could to try to bring in whoever we could to help the offense and help the defense. And we had so much dead cap with Trey Flowers and all the Quintricia stuff. And we had to change the entire team, the entire culture, everything. So he needed every spare penny he could find. And he didn't have two nickels to rub together to pay Prater to begin with.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
So kicker was the one thing that it got swept to the side. It wasn't the highest on the priority list.
So I want to shout out here Gavis Khan. It says, I love Goff. Does he want the money or championships? If it's money, ride with Hendon. The line is built, backs in place, and receivers are there. Don't bet $60 million a season on a quarterback. One, I haven't heard any reports of 60 million. I think the max number here we're talking is 52. 52 million would be the max number for Goff. Number two here on that statement. If we were to extend Goff right now, his cap hit wouldn't be any different for this year. If anything, it'll go down 5 to 10 million this year. Number three, the biggest thing that I think that some fans, I'm not saying you, but some fans forget is these guys have agents and they are run by agencies. So it's not the player, it's the agent. It's not the player that's making any of these decisions. It's the agent. The player could go to the agent and say, look, I don't care about money. I want to win. And I know I'm worth 55 million a year. I'll take 35. And the agent's going to say, dude, that's great. I commend you for that. But you see this contract that you signed? It says right here, I own you and I get to make all of your decisions. So if I want 55 million and there's a team that's going to pay it, guess what? You're going to that team and we're going to get 55 million because I want my 3%. And that's the problem we're dealing with here. It's not so much Jared Goff. And so I want to make sure that any animosity towards Goff is removed because he can only do and say so much. He could fire his agent, right? But then again, they signed that contract. So even if he fired his agent, any future contracts, they'll probably still get a piece of anyway. So I want to make sure that any animosity is removed from Jared Goff's name because it's not him that is, forcing the issue here. Of course, he's deserved of whatever he gets. And he's proven to everybody time and time again that he is the right man for the job. In 3 seasons, he's missed 3 games, and that was his first season in Detroit. And you know what? It was a great decision because it was a losing season. We lost just about every single game. And then I think he came back and won 3 out of the last 6 games or something like that. Didn't finish the season off with at least a win. And then he started off the next season, were we 0-6, 1-6, and then finished 9-8. Almost went to the playoffs. Like, if it wasn't for the refs screwing up that game with the Seahawks, we probably would have been in the playoffs. And in year 3, we almost go to a Super Bowl. It is very, 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 very easy, like Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have both said, to get very bad at quarterback versus getting better at quarterback. It is very easy to get worse. So we have to be careful with what we wish for. Hendon Hooker, like we just spoke about this morning, he's nowhere near ready that we know of. And based on the stats, the analytics, the history of the NFL, quarterback, rookie quarterbacks, second-year quarterbacks, third-year quarterbacks, it's there to prove to you that Hendon needs time, just like every other quarterback needs time. CJ Stroud was the outlier last year. He's the only one that had a good season out of that rookie class. And that's been kind of the way of the NFL for many seasons. You might get one guy that plays well in his first year. He was the outlier because he went to the playoffs his first year. Lamar Jackson, I believe, was the last player to go to the playoffs as a rookie quarterback. What does that tell you? You have to, and I've done all the numbers on this channel before. 2.5 to 3 seasons is your expected average length of time before a rookie quarterback is going to actually either A, have a winning season, or B, make it to the playoffs, or both. You can go to the playoffs with a losing season. It's been done. But I think that speaks volumes to a player that wasn't drafted in the first round, drafted in the third, came into the league with an ACL, has not practiced at all really until this year. He was in walkthroughs the last 6 weeks to kind of recap what we went over. And this year is his first full season. I consider his rookie season. So even if you were to start right now, today, Jared Goff was traded. It would probably be 2.5 seasons before we're back in the playoffs. And I don't think that that's the right move. I think the right move is to continue on doing what we're doing. Anything else you want to add this morning, Eric, before we sign off for the morning?
I got a question for you.
Sure.
How many either rookie or first-year quarterbacks have went on to win a Super Bowl?
Say that again.
How many either rookie or first-year quarterbacks have went on that season to win a Super Bowl?
Since when?
Ever. In the
How
NFL.
many rookie or a first-year quarterback? So is that not the same thing?
Well, somebody like Love that sat for 3 years and then got to play finally.
Okay, so they never played in the NFL. That would be their first season playing.
Yeah, their first season.
Or they were drafted and it's their rookie season.
Yeah. I believe there's only been one.
Oh, I guess you're going to answer it for me. All right.
I believe.
All right.
I believe. I could be wrong.
Well, I was going to say one, but not one really comes to mind. I would say if anybody did it, Steve Young comes to mind.
Wasn't it Ben Roethlisberger? Didn't he win the Super Bowl his rookie year? I'm pretty sure.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Pretty sure.
You don't have the answer in front of you? It's not got to look it up.
Yeah, I have to look it up. But I was just thinking about that. You're talking about all the rookies, getting to the playoffs and stuff. How many of them have ever won the Super Bowl? Because all I'm hearing from the Bears fans is Caleb Williams, he's going to win us the Super Bowl this year. He's going to win the Super Bowl this year. And I'm like, you guys should just want to make the playoffs.
Yeah. So according to this, February 9th, 2024, No rookie quarterback has ever won a Super Bowl in the 57 years of the game's existence as the starter. In fact, no rookie has ever even reached the Super Bowl as the starter for a team. Now, that doesn't seem right. Did Joe Burrow not make it his rookie season? Was it his second season?
Must have been.
I guess it had to have been.
I thought he got hurt his rookie season.
He might have.
He blew his knee or something.
I thought that was 21. But anyway, well, I'll have to look more into this. So upcoming this week, we should have another podcast join us. Now, I'm not going to say the name just yet. Pretty well-known guy in the area of Detroit. Has a pretty successful podcast on YouTube. Still working out what time in the morning he's going to be able to come in. If we'll do a segment or if we'll do a full show. Still working on Coach Bono's schedule. Should be Friday night podcast this week. And still working on getting the recruiter in for Giovanni Manu's recruiter to talk about Giovanni Manu. Some of the content this week will highlight Giovanni, obviously coming in to play guard right away. I wanted to get that information out last week. Shortly after he was drafted, there was information that came out that the Lions are going to be putting him at right guard, which I feel is perfect for him. One, you're putting him behind Zeitler. And Zeitler's on a 1-year deal. So you are addressing an immediate need right away, which is backing up Zeitler for Zeitler's eventual departure from the team, which is more than likely after the season. Depending on how the season goes and how Zeitler feels after the season and contract negotiations, he probably won't be back in 2025. Be that as it may, you guys, I'm super excited about a few things, like really excited. Our offensive line is going to be better this year on paper than what it was last year. Zeitler is a huge upgrade over Jonah Jackson. Granted, right versus left guard. Graham Glasgow played better than Jonah Jackson last year, playing left guard. Our backup center is now Graham Glasgow. We picked up Giovanni Manu, who's project-esque per Brad Holmes, but again, don't count the player out, just like Hendon Hooker. You don't know until you know. We'll see this year in training camp where he progresses. And then Mahogany. Mahogany was a huge addition to this team, someone that slipped way beyond where he should have. Been reports of a longer leg, one other than the other, which may have been the reason why he slipped. I could care less. Like if the guy can move and he, I think you're going to want that longer leg be your front leg, right? Not your back leg. Maybe reversed. I don't know. I guess I'd have to put myself in an offensive lineman stance to figure that one out. But wherever that lands him on the offensive line, the Lions have done an excellent job. The Lions have done an excellent job this year of stabilizing both trenches. And that's going to be tonight's conversation, I think. Let me see what I got up tonight. What do we have up tonight? No, we got rookie minicamp tonight. Who stands out? Who doesn't? That'll be tonight's conversation at 8 p.m. right back here on Rock Down Detroit Lions on Rock Down Podcast Network. And then I got another project coming out.
Rookie minicamp starts the 10th, correct?
Yep. Starts the 10th through the 12th.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No, you're good. You're good. Some project coming out. The NFL really let this happen. What is that going to mean? I think you guys are going to enjoy it. We're going to be talking about what the NFL just allowed to happen, like I was saying earlier, the Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell era, and now what has been able to happen with our trenches. We have all the reasons in the world to be excited this season and beyond. So anything else you want to end with, Eric, before we bounce off today?
Yeah, just that we're going to be trying to go 5 days a week, I think. Is that that's been the plan. Yep. So we're going to continue. Yeah. We'll start next Monday with that. Next Monday we'll be going 5 days a week. And then of course I'll be bounced back down to Florida here in a couple weeks, but I'm going to try to, as long as my flights don't interrupt me, we'll either figure it out or Eric will be on by himself or with somebody else, to make sure that we're here in the morning
go easy on Eric, especially his first time having to manage the chat. So he may not be able to manage the chat like I couldn't. So, all right, you guys have been great this morning. Anything else? Last thing you want to add? Anything?
Oh, Rob Nitz. He said, Eric, thanks for posting this to your Facebook. Never would have known about it. Great show, guys. That's awesome. I'm so thankful that a lot of my Facebook followers are starting to get over here. And I was noticing, like, right now we got 70 in the chat. So that's not too bad for 8 o'clock in the morning. I like that.
Well, it's not too bad for being like, 2 weeks not in the saddle. So my channel's suffering right now. And speaking of that, channel's suffering because I haven't been able to get content out. I mean, going to the draft kind of killed the momentum for me to get out content, and then being wiped out and then having to travel to Florida right away, which was last minute planning. So you guys would do us a huge favor by hitting the like button, of course, sharing it, putting a comment in. That would really help get the channel back up so we can get in front of more fans. And then, of course, as the videos drop, watch the videos. So I know a lot of you just like live. We also do videos. I just got to get them rolling again. So I will put out all of my draft material on every player. It'll slowly start leaking out this week. And we'll be back, to it as much as we can, as long as information allows. It's going to be the dead season. So we'll have some fun while we can. But once training camp hits, or really rookie mini camp, be a big week for us. And then training camp, OTAs, all that stuff. So it's going to be a slow progress, but you know what? You guys are going to blink and it's going to be week 1 and we're going to be right into it. So awesome day this morning. Go enjoy it. Eric, thank you for joining this morning, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Tonight we'll post the link, and then tonight right back here, 8 p.m. Should just be me tonight. Interesting conversation we should be having about who stands out, who doesn't in the rookie minicamp. That's all for a Rise and Grind morning show. Enjoy your day, and happy birthday to my father today. Happy birthday, buddy. Appreciate you. Love you, Dad.
Happy birthday, Senior.
All right. We'll see y'all later. Take care. Bye-bye.